Welcome in to another Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
We're doing good. We're headed to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, who's doing better than us?
No one, really. I mean, other than, I guess, the Boston Celtics, who got to rest a little bit. But, man, if we were in the East, we'd be killing it, too. I honestly don't think that the Indiana Pacers would have a shot against us. But that's neither here nor there. But before we get going, make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple. So, Chris, let's get into it. Just first off, your impressions from Game 7. I mean, talk about the comeback a little bit. What did you see out there? What did they do different in the second half?
I was watching it, Denver was missing a lot of shots in the first half. So I was like, okay, this isn't getting too bad. And then it was creeping a little bit. It felt like we couldn't get anything working at all. Like no ball movement, nothing was happening. It was really strange. And then we saw Anthony Edwards get activated and take over playoff mode. And it was beautiful. Ball movement was huge. I mean, like when you start going downhill with momentum like that, everything starts to flow. Guys start playing defense harder because we just made a couple stops. So you don't want to be the guy that gets scored on. And it was just the total team effort. The classic, what Finch has been calling for all year and what our players say often is like, oh, we didn't stick to the game plan or we didn't skip to the game plan. Everything I heard was a game plan was run exactly how it needs to in the second half. And that was part of the reason why we just dominated.
Yeah, for sure. And on a game where Anthony Edwards shoots 6 for 24, I know I said in the last podcast that if you told me we were down 20 in the third quarter and Anthony Edwards would shoot 6 for 24, I would have said, oh, well, that's a loss. Denver's going to the Western Conference Finals. But this team is just resilient. How about the 1-2 punch of Naz Reid and Karl-Anthony Towns? I said it when Naz Reid went in for Karl-Anthony Towns after he got that hand check foul. I said Naz earned that 6th Man of the Year award right now. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, that defense on Jokic and then a couple buckets as well, that putback slam, immaculate.
And not only that, the ball move, like just knowing when to swing it. Like, so he had a couple defensive plays. I think he had a bucket, couple defensive plays. Then he had that dunk. And then the very next possession, Conley gets the steal. It gets kicked at Naz. Naz is crashing down the lane at 1,000,000 miles per hour right after he just dunked it. Right after, like, everything, all eyes are on Naz. He's taking over the quarter. And what does he do? He slams on the brakes and kicks it out to Anthony Edwards for the open 3 in the corner. Like, he could have easily been greedy and tried to force the layup with guys around him because he's been hot. But no, he makes the right play. Like, that's the kind of thing that we did that whole half. And that extra pass, it makes other guys want to take that extra pass. And it's contagious, and it was beautiful. But I think everyone's felt that. Like, Naz has been not what we need from him that whole series. And I know I said the same thing. I'm like, Naz has to make an impact right here. Like, it's time for him to show his what he's worth. And he did, and it helped us seal the win.
And we have a comment from Jared Good, who we know well and good, I guess we should say. He says thoughts on J-Mac's attempted alley-oop slam, self alley-oop slam at the end. And I know I said this in the chat, but I really didn't like it. You got to show a sense of professionalism. And I don't want to sound like the big prude, like, oh, you got to do everything, act like you've been there before, which they haven't. But particularly when Jaden's had a past of punching a wall and getting dumb technicals and getting dumb fouls. I don't like you throwing it up to yourselves and trying to throw up an alley-oop, particularly when there's still 20 seconds left on the clock. Like, if nothing else, if you fumble that away, they go down, hit a 3, anything can happen.
And it was kind of corny. Like, it's not even that amazing of a dunk. Like, what are you even doing? Like, no one's gonna be like, "Oh my god, did you see that?" You know, like
Right.
it was just kind of pointless. It's stupid. To me, it kind of shows that he is still kind of an idiot. But that's okay. You know, he had the first time in his career he goes back to back games with 20 points. You know, he was feeling probably on top of the world. So emotions kind of get the best of him. I bet you if it happened again, he wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and that's just
Oh, we lost you. No. But it is, you're probably saying that's kind of what you do when you're young. You make big mistakes, you learn from it. You know, the moment gets big. Game 7 on the road at the other people's house, you know, historic comeback. I mean, it was in everybody's mind. Everybody was going nuts. I'm just happy that, you know, it didn't get out of hand or anybody got angry on Denver's side.
yeah, I'm back, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. My thing is, it's just like, what if they go down and hit a 3? Like after that, like they were clearly pumping on the brakes. What I just, and maybe it's the Minnesota sports pessimist in me. It's not over till it's over.
Right.
Maybe it's just because I've seen Jamal Murray hit a half court shot with 2 seconds left in the series. Maybe it's just that, but I don't know. I didn't like it that much, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, let's move forward and talk about the series coming up, which we have the Dallas Mavericks. Now, a couple stats that I'll go through, and then I'll let you talk a little bit about the Mavs.
Yeah.
Just kind of some logistical stats. 16 3 seeds have made the NBA Finals. 8 of them have won the NBA Finals. The most recent team that was a 3 seed to win the NBA Finals was the 2022 Golden State Warriors. And the year before that, the 2021 Bucks won as well. And the 2011 Mavs won as well. And 6 out of the last 7 3 seeds to make the NBA Finals have won the NBA Finals. Meanwhile, only 1 3 seed in NBA history has made the 5 seed in NBA history has made the NBA Finals. It was in the year 2020. Do you know what that 5 seed was?
Lakers.
Other one.
Heat.
Heat. Yep. They lost 4-2. That was the bubble. So
Yeah,
things were a little different there, but history is on our side in this. But go ahead, kind of break down the Mavericks series a little bit and what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting because this is the type of team that we're built to defend the best. You know, a team that's heavy on isolation. That's right, our bread and butter for our wing defenders. We're gonna have plenty of guys to throw at these two. Speaking about Kyrie and Luka, obviously. And it's actually going to be a series where I think that slow mo is going to have a lot more value. I think he's going to be able to D up Luka, you know, at least in a you know a role here and there to help spell some guys. So he might have some more value than he did. What I don't like, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is the Duke kid, Lively and Gafford. Those guys are those pogo stick, like 7-foot big guys. They're hard to deal with. You know, they've got a lot of energy. They do nothing except for attack the glass. So we're gonna have our hands full with them. You know, those are the guys that are always catching lobs, like getting that just garbage stuff. Those are just tough guys to deal with. So Rudy's gonna have his hands full there. But I think we should be able to handle them. I mean, they really are just a two-headed monster, and I think we can cut them off. And other than that, they just shoot corner threes. So, like, if you can stop the corner three and those two guys from killing you in isolation, we should be all right. And I think we will.
And I think a big key to it is when Luka hits like some crazy shot, because you know it's going to happen. He's going to hit
Yeah.
some crazy shot at some point. Don't
Right.
lose hope. Keep going at him. Keep up the aggressive defense, because if Devin Booker and the likes of Jamal Murray are someone who you can get in their head and get them out of the game, Luka is definitely someone that you can get in the head of,
Oh yeah.
because he
It's a
is
highlight.
arguing with the in fact, I think earlier this series he said arguing with the refs is messing up my games. If we can get him emotionally out of the game and focused on the refs, or focused on him not hitting shots, we can be very successful. I looked up some stats from Luka. This is in the last series, so small sample size. In losses in the last series, he's shooting 12 for 39, 30% from the field, 3 for 17, 17% from the field, and 18 points per game. In wins in the series, completely different. 39 for 75, 52%, 15 for 29, 51% from the field, and 28 points per game. So that's a difference of 10 points a game in wins versus losses.
Yeah, I mean, he's a handful. He's a handful for sure. But there's also some part to him that's kind of like the Joker, where he'll give you some turnovers. Like he'll throw the ball around a bit. He's going to take some bad shots. So I mean, you can live and die sometimes with him, because if you can make it difficult, he's going to, he might have that 15% from three, jack up 6 or 7 of them and only make one. Those nights happen for Luka. So I think like you're talking about frustration. What Jaden has done to Booker to completely get him shook, and then to do the same thing to Murray where he's like throwing stuff, like that same thing can happen to Luka. We'll give that same action to all these guys, and when they're done, we'll give them to Tatum.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brown as well. So obviously the Wolves went 3-4 against the Mavericks this year. I was actually at the only loss in Dallas, where yeah, I was at that game. The Wolves were up 6 with 2.5 minutes to go, and then it all went downhill in that game. But I will say, I believe with Luka and Kyrie, the Wolves are 1-1 against them, I believe, because I think the other games there were some injury problems.
And
so there was one of the games.
Gafford late, and they got PJ Brown late. So I mean,
PJ Washington.
PJ Washington, yeah. So their whole team has really kind of evolved in a different direction lately. So I mean, it's going to be a whole new series. But I don't think there's anybody that should scare us too much, other than the obviously 2 monsters that we're going to have to keep in front of us.
Yeah, for sure. I know that, like you said, Dallas, to their credit, went out at the trade deadline and got some length for them, which I think actually they were probably looking at the teams that they got to compete against and were like, hey, we got to make some moves, because the Wolves have Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and what do we have?
Well, and even big guys, like their big guys were okay, like just sort of like okay. But I mean, their big guys is what beat OKC. I mean, we've been saying all year, OKC is just too small, which is why before that game was settled, me and you both would rather have seen OKC than Dallas in this matchup, because we're just too damn big for OKC, and that's not going to be completely the case for Dallas. They've got some height, but I mean, I think a lot of times they're still starting PJ Washington at power forward. And if that's the case, he's kind of like a small forward. So we should still be able to bully him a little bit.
Yeah, PJ did not have a good game. He hit some shots late in the closeout game 6 in Dallas, but PJ 2 for 6 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. And then the X factor is like we were saying, it's going to be very important what the Wolves get off the bench with the likes of Nickeil Alexander-Walker or
Nas. Like Nas needs to be better. Like I love Nas, and we've been talking about Nas and for years on this podcast, and how we're waiting for him to get his time to shine. And this is it, Nas. Like it was your first playoffs earlier this playoffs. Now this is your third series. It's no longer your first playoffs. You're a vet now in the playoffs. It's time to know what it's like and step up and give us some 20-point games. Like, the whole world fell over and twisted on its head when, Jaden gives us back-to-back 20-point games. That should not be impossible for Nas to do either. You're sixth man of the year. Drop us a couple 20-point games this series, and we're going to win it. Like we've been saying all playoffs, if any one of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden, or Nas give us 20 points, we're winning that game. Like we need a third scorer. So someone has to step up, and it might need to be Nas. It should be Nas.
And looking at the third scorer for the Mavericks, a guy who's been really shooting well for them, released recently, and putting up a lot of shots, Derrick Jones Jr. could be an interesting matchup for us.
He's another energy guy.
One of those guys last 3 games, he's put up 17, 19, and 22, shooting about 50% from 3 and about 60% from the field. So he's been good for them lately. I think he's been a big reason why they took the OKC Thunder in 6. And go ahead.
He might be who's going to be guarding Edwards a lot too. He's a heck of a defender. He's long. He's a super athlete. He's been absolutely terrible at shooting for his whole career until this year, and somehow he found his shot. And I'm guessing almost all those are corner threes because Dallas has like 3 of the top 5 guys in the playoffs by shooting corner threes, by amount. So we got to shut that down, but we can't let those extra guys go off. Cat has to dominate 100%, Jared. Cat has to be who Cat is. I mean, he has to play like an all-star. This is Western Conference Finals time. We're not trying to squeak by. We need everyone, all hands on deck, everyone playing as good as they can.
So let me ask you this question, and I was listening to some people debate this. Has Cat done enough in your mind to change the narrative that he's a stat stuffer, and B, he's not an effective playoff player? Like that, no. He's not. He's a winner rather than just a guy who puts up stats. Has he done enough in your mind to change that narrative this playoffs?
No, not even close, to be honest with you. I mean, I like the fact that he's not making bad plays. He's not making stupid plays. I mean, he's changed the narrative to me to be like, you're a selfish player. I don't think you could say that about him anymore. But he's still, and it's no really knock on Cat. He just doesn't, in my opinion, have the athletic gifts to be like a true number 1 scorer, to be a guy that you give the ball to and let him go get a bucket. Like, he just can't move. He's not subtle enough. He's not like shifty enough for that sort of thing. He's a great player. It's just, he is what he is. So no, he hasn't, to me. I think it's easy to shut him down. I think it's easy to take his game away from him. And I mean, I love how we won Game 7, but the whole first half they guarded him with Jamal Murray. And we only posted him up a couple of times because it didn't work that much. Like that should have lasted three possessions down, and it should have been the 3 fouls on Murray or 3 layups, and it wasn't. So, that sort of thing bothers me with Cat. So he needs to keep improving for me to put him in that category.
I agree, but he does have the opportunity to do it if he goes out but that's the other thing. I do think that his value isn't only with posting up Murray, it's also him being one of the best big men 3-point shooters ever. So
if he can get him off, I mean, how many did he shoot last game? Maybe 3 or 4? Shoot 8. You know what I mean? Like Klay Thompson, when he's hot, he's shooting 8 threes, or not even hot, just regular. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker should not shoot more 3-pointers than Karl-Anthony Towns on the average game.
Yeah, and that's another guy who's got to be better. He was ice cold. I don't even know, did he score?
No, I think he was like 0 for 6.
I mean, but he's got to be better.
When it swings to Cat, he needs to shoot. And, again, he can do it, and he will. I believe in Cat. I think that he knows how rare it is to get to the Western Conference Finals. I think he knows how important it is for him as a player, as his legacy, as everything to have this be successful. So I think part of that is why he's making all the right plays, which I think is more important than him scoring or doing anything. Is him not messing things up. But he's also a guy who can drop 50 on you, so we need it.
And he could drop 50 and we lose. I was at that game this year.
Yep.
That's an interesting.
Kind of the point.
By the way, like I was saying, for anyone, and I know this is kind of a mute point, anyone who says, oh, I wish we wouldn't have played Denver, or if we would have lost to Denver, guess what? You wouldn't have had to play Denver in the second round if you just beat the Charlotte Hornets when you were up 15 going into the fourth. I'm just saying, I'm not saying. But anyway, moving forward here. Yeah, Nikhil has to be better. Kyle Anderson, like you said, maybe use him a little more defensively.
Mike Conley has to be better. Let's be honest.
Conley,
let's call a spade a spade. He's a great vet. He does the right things all the time. But, I keep hearing this, get on my level. I told everyone to get on my level. Well, Conley, this is Western Conference Finals, buddy. You're going to have to maybe get on a higher level yourself. Like, we need everybody on deck. So let's see what happens. And whoever steps up, I love what Fitch did last game. Nas was playing his butt off, and Cat sat and watched it happen in that whole fourth quarter because we were hot. So I think it's no longer who cares about the name on the back of your jersey. It's the name on the front of your jersey, and how you're playing is who's going to get playing time, hopefully, this series.
Also, another thing that we've been talking about a little bit, how about I am almost positive that Mike Nori will not be on this team next year, because I think he's going to get a head coaching job. To step in, now I know that Chris Finch is still the coach of the Wolves, whatever, but to step in and your first resume builder is beating the Denver Nuggets when you're the 3 seed and they're the 2 seed, someone's going to give him a chance. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be the best coach in the world, but I like his chances if he's learned under Chris Finch.
And he was in Denver before that. I think he might have even been in Toronto. I mean, he's a well-traveled assistant and well-respected. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that are going to be fighting for a couple jobs. And, part of it is us winning the championship this year is going to really slow down his options because, I guess he already interviewed with the Lakers, so you never know. Yeah, we'll see. I hope he stays. I think I hope he stays to find the opportunity that's right for him. I hope he doesn't move just for the first opportunity, because some of those jobs for some of these head coaches are kind of a poison pill.
Yeah. I mean, and I just want to take a minute. I know I talked about this on our past podcast, and we shouldn't celebrate too early or anything, but let's just think back to when the Timberwolves, their head coach was Randy Whitman. Their best player was Al Jefferson. They won 15 games. And all we have to look forward is, this Kevin Love kid looks okay. Look at how far.
Not many years ago, we had the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
I mean, look at how far we've come from that. I mean, this is just a huge moment for Timberwolves fans. We've been through so much. We've been through the Cream team. We've been through the Jimmy Butler era. We've been through the Wiggins BS. I mean, the Zach LaVine trade, and I know that goes in with Butler as well. But everything changed on that night where instead of LaMelo Ball, and no ill will to LaMelo Ball. I know he's had injury problems. I know he's one hell of a talent. But that night that we took Anthony Edwards, this thing changed for the better.
And between him and Chris Finch and their almost instant bond where he can be coached hard, like to have a player that's willing to be coached hard and to listen to that sort of hard coaching and to absorb it and to actually put it on the court. Like, his willingness to be a passer, his willingness to get off the ball faster. That's what they said in the third quarter. Like, Anthony Edwards, you got to get off the ball faster when these doubles come. You're holding it too long. You're bogging everything down. Like, his willingness to take that sort of direct frontal attack from the coach, and the coach that's willingness to put that on a star, it's been the perfect match. And I mean, it's like a storybook what these Timberwolves have turned into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a real movie ending, unlike the movie ending for when we won a random regular season game against the Hawks. This is a real movie ending.
And you want to hear a thing that's actually crazy that I remembered just the other day is, and I think it's still happening. I haven't really looked into it too much, but I think this season somebody's following Anthony Edwards and making a documentary on him this whole year, kind of like The Last Dance or like a Hoop Dreams type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that documentary is going, could you imagine when we win the championship and he's the MVP? Like, that's going to be an amazing story, you know, starting out not knowing what's going to happen. I mean, what a storybook that's going to turn into.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a huge opportunity for Anthony Edwards to write a legacy this early in his career. Something
Exactly.
Jordan didn't do, something
Right.
Bryant didn't do, something that Kevin Garnett definitely didn't do. I mean, what did it take for Kevin Garnett to win a championship? Paul Pierce, Ray Allen.
Yeah, multiple Hall of Famers.
Paul Pierce and maybe the best, other than Curry, one of the best shooters we've ever seen in our life.
Rondo, one of the best playmakers. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and a season that has gotten Doc Rivers endless amount of jobs.
Oh my God. So what do you think? How do you think this series is going to go?
Sorry. I didn't mean to click on that. Do you want to see that? Do you want to?
Yeah. What is it?
It was just Jared. He said, people expect to see more slow-mo. I hate the idea of involving him. Can you expand on your thought of why you would see more slow-mo?
So the only reason why I would say that we'll see more is because he actually has a role. Like, I don't think he could really, I didn't see him as a great defender against Jokic. He's fine. He stays in front of him. But Luka Doncic kind of has that slow body that he's definitely not coming fast. So that's not, that helps in slow-mos. But he's also likes that body contact, that body-to-body, chest-to-chest stuff. And slow-mo's solid that way. Like, and by me saying he's going to play more, I mean, like, I didn't want him to play 1 second in Denver at all. So, like, if he plays 5 to 8 minutes a game, 5 minutes maybe, just to spell a guy who's in foul trouble, I think that could be valuable minutes. Whereas I didn't think that his 5 to 8 minutes a game in the Suns or the Denver series were valuable at all. So,
no, I don't think so.
So to me, it's not so. Maybe his actual minutes aren't going to be more, but I think he's actually going to have a positive impact where that wasn't the case prior.
Yeah, and I think the last minutes of Kyle Anderson being a Timberwolf will either be ending as a champion or wherever we end up in these playoffs, because I don't think he's coming back next year. Anyway, let's get into it.
Yep.
I got Wolves in 6. I really do. I got Wolves in 6. I think that Luka could win one game just win a game by himself. Luka and Kyrie, I think they could go off and win a game, and maybe they win a second game as well. One other stat that I wanted to bring up, and it'll be interesting at the rim, since February 10th, when Gafford and Washington made their debuts with Dallas, the Mavericks ranked 2nd in the NBA in field goal percentage on dunks and layups. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves are allowing the league's lowest field goal percentage on layups and dunks for the entire season. So it's going to be a battle between Gobert and Lively and Nas and Karl-Anthony Towns and Gafford. It's going to be a battle down there, and I'm excited for it. Yeah, I got Wolves in 6. What do you think?
I'm going to go gentleman sweep, Wolves in 5. I think we're just going to overwhelm them. I think they're not ready for it. I know that OKC plays some defense and they're kind of scrappy, but I think we're going to take it to a whole nother level and they're not going to know what to hit them. And we're just going to storm them and run them completely out of these playoffs. I don't think they have it in them to hold up.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And we are going to continue to be covering the playoffs going forward. Make sure to stay with the Running with the Timberwolves podcast. And Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem, man. See you again after this next win.
Absolutely. And this is the Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple. And word of mouth marketing. If you know a friend that loves the Timberwolves, tell them about the podcast. Tell them that there is a place where they can listen and talk Wolves and give their opinion, because that's what we're all about. And as always, go Wolves.